Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, this is the press on reaching you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. We've now been joined by our guest, the legal practitioner, barrister Kelechi Anwu. You're welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the studio, barrister.
Thank you.
And this is a reminder that our phone lines are now open for you to call in and join the conversation on the press this morning. All right, barrister Anwu, how are you doing today?
I'm very well.
I would like us to begin some of the headlines in the papers with this insecurity story in Zamfara State. I'd love to get your opinion. There's this story that says Zamfara governor alleges FG in secret talks with bandits. Now, he's saying that there should be no conversations around what is it called, a negotiation. While he says the federal government are negotiating, and we learned that some of the students that were abducted, some of them have been released while some are still in captivity. Now, what do you make of this kind of situation where there is no unity between the governments when it comes to facing the bandits in question?
Now, the security situation of our country is something so many persons has not been sincere with. And then take, for instance, the Zamfara issue. We've had a lot of reports coming in from Zamfara.
The illegal
mining,
yes.
The banditry, and the rest, the kidnapping, you could name them. It means somebody somewhere is compromising the situation as much as you would want a safe Zamfara. Now, if you look at it on that perspective, understanding that the governor is the chief security officer of his state, you would understand his position. A governor would not just come and make such blanket statement if there were he wasn't seeing anything and things that he wasn't comfortable with. Now, there is no sane society in the world that negotiates with terrorists and bandits. The first point of in fact, these institutions, the government institution ought to be above this whatever, because the government institution is seen as having it all. They have the resources, they have the wherewithal to deal with anything. Take, for instance, these bandits are private individuals, private persons that form one kind of group and begins to wield arms. So with whatever arms and paraphernalia that they have, the government ought to have it double or even triple. So if you make any move to make this negotiation, it will only worsen the situation. So if my suggestion would be, whatever it takes for government to clamp down on whoever that has taken arms upon the government, they should take every measure. It shouldn't call for negotiation. It should call for action. Immediate action. No party is allowed anywhere in the world to negotiate with terrorists. These guys are terrorists, and that is what they are. They should be treated as one.
Okay, now you made mention of something earlier while we were making your submission, and it's the fact that you referred to the governor as the chief security officer of the state. You know, all through the period when we've been battling the whole insecurity issue, we have been told the governor is the chief security officer of the state. The governor is the chief security officer of the state. But if we look at it more critically, the police commissioner in each state, they are not answering to the governor of the state. The battalion in the state, they are not answering to the state governor. Don't you think it's a case of it's a case of saying white when you mean black? Don't you think we need some kind of legal framework that will give the state governor some kind of authority to be able to give some kind of standing order on the security over the security architecture of the state? Because we've seen situations, you have seen, for example, in Lagos sometimes last year when the Governor Sanwo-Olu ordered the commissioner of, I think one of the superintendent of police in Lagos State to order his men out of a particular estate. He blatantly refused that the governor would have to call the Inspector General of Police. So if we look at different scenarios like that, is it still proper to still refer to the governor as the chief security officer of the state?
Now, a state is a component, and it has so many areas, local government, villages, and all that. Now, if you look at the security as architecture of a state, you understand that there is no amount of police officer you will have in a state that will be enough to cover the grounds. Now, if you also look at it that way, you also understand that the governor oversees the entire state, not in person, but through associates and appointees that are laden in various villages and local governments. Now, there must be a collaboration between the security agents that are in the state for them to properly function in that state. If you do not have that collaboration with your governor, you cannot move beyond your office. And if you are just in your office, it means you are just a posted person to that environment. Now, it is that your collaboration with the state government and the governor who is in charge of that state. He is totally in charge of that state, including you who is posted to his state. Now, it is that collaboration that gives you that access, that information that he has within the areas you cannot even reach, and within the reach that you cannot even access. So if the governor decides that he wants, he does not like your mode of operation, he might not have you access those information and those resources that you will be able to work optimally. Now, it now truncates your duty and how you perform those functions that have been allocated to you as the commissioner of police or a police officer. So it is incumbent on every police commissioner or any police officer posted to have that understanding, but that understanding should also be defined so it doesn't get overstretched. So it is incumbent on them to have that understanding and be able to work together with the government, understand that the government is there for them, and the police officers are also, and security agencies are also there for the state. So they should be able to work in hand and be able to secure the state. Now, it is this government office, the governor and the police officers, they should be able to exchange information.
Synergy.
Exactly. They should be able to exchange information and know the areas that are most volatile and most important to attend to.
All right, let's move on and ask you some questions that are related to the law. There's this headline that says, twist in Akeredolu deputy feud. And it says, Assembly Speaker raises alarm over threats to life. Says sacrifice placed near his lodge. Deputy Governor heads to court, seeks injunction against removal by Assembly. And now we say we have served Deputy Governor removal notice. That's coming from the Assembly. And Assembly orders Chief Judge to constitute panel to investigate Ayedatiwa. Now, in this case of the Deputy Governor of the state, it's not the first time we're seeing recurring issues of the governor and their deputy. Now, in this case of the Deputy Governor, now, there are conversations that he has gone to court to seek injunction. Is it possible that there is a stay order where he's not being impeached? And then there's also a notice from the National Assembly that they've sent a notice for him to be removed from office. In all of this, we know that when elections are coming up, the most important figure here is the governor, not necessarily the deputy. So in this case, is there any law that's going to be backing him that since you have been elected together, you have to stay the tenure together?
Now, anybody can be removed from office, including the governor and the deputy governor. But however, the Constitution, our Constitution, 1999 Constitution as amended, has made provisions as to what and how such persons shall be removed. It is a very difficult provision, however. In fact, some would say it is much more easier for a head of camel to pass through the eye of a needle for you, because one mistake in each of the processes that have been laid down in the Constitution, it's a very bulky situation. Now, there are grounds upon which you must satisfy. One of which is either health or misconduct.
Misconduct.
So you must be able to substantiate the misconduct that have been committed. Not only that, the next step you will take is to notify the House.
Getting to third of the House.
And you must get to third of the House. It does not end on getting to third of the House. Upon getting to third of the House, the Chief Judge of the State will set a panel of inquiries. So you see, it moves from one point to the other, from one point, and any mistake in any of these things. And you not forgetting the notices you shall serve the governor for 7 days. So if you miss any of these steps, you've crumbled the entire process. So you need to go and start afresh. So it is very technical process that you don't just wake up one morning and then impeach the governor or the deputy governor. It must be something substantial. It must be something concrete. It must be something that not only the House of Assembly will pass there to third, but the panel of inquiries that have been set must also be able to ascertain and confirm that it is
right. Kelechi, let me hold you for a minute. Now, you talked about misconduct. One of the reasons that the Ondo Assembly has given is his purchase of the armored vehicle from while the governor was away on health grounds. His purchase of the armored vehicle to the tune of 300 million naira from the money meant for the subsidy palliative for Ondo indigents. Now, I'm just trying to establish the part of misconduct. Now let's move forward. Now, don't you think this constant feuds between governors and deputy governors when elections are close, don't you think it's highlighting the loopholes we have in our constitution? Because before you came on the show, I cited an example of the United States of America when Donald Trump was impeached by the lower assembly. By the lower assembly, can we have that scenario here, whereby an individual is not bigger than the institution? Because over here, most of the times, what we see is a situation whereby, if for you to become the flag bearer of the party, you have to be on the good books of the governor. You have to be on the good books of the governor. The governor has to anoint you. Even if he's anointing you because he likes you, because you are going to continue in his ideology, not because you are in Nigeria and you have the right to vote and be voted for. So can you just help us shed more light on this, coming from a legal perspective? Before you do that, let's quickly take this call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, I think he doesn't know we've answered the call. Maybe he's going to call back. So now the floor is yours. To take you back on the perspective, there is nobody, including the president of Nigeria, that is bigger than the institution. Yes. The law is the law. And there are legal framework up. Forget that persons act with so much impunity. But it is the impunity that gets people into trouble. As much as you've overstretched the law. No, that's what we are talking about now. But can't you get to that space whereby the law makes it difficult for you to act? The law is there. The law is there. But you know the insatiable human nature, the insatiable quest for power and dominance. It has more to do with individual human beings. The insatiable quest for powers and dominance, it's what leads to these things. It has nothing to do with the law. We have more than enough laws that regulate these things.
We have laws that govern political parties' nomination. We have laws that govern the administration of offices. We have laws, beautiful laws that are even covering these fields. But the problem we have often is individuals trying to outsmart the law. And we also have an institutions where persons who are supposed to uphold the law in the other way look away. Not because there is no law, but because it is their person who is in such circumstances. So also, what would they do in such circumstances? They look away. But the law is there. If you have someone either from the other side, they could ordinarily have taken efforts, made efforts, but for the very fact that our system, our political system, is rigged in brotherhood, in persons of party affiliations, persons of interest,
personal interest.
We now have this issue where people want to get things done at all cost, and they will tell you we have somebody.
Okay, please give us a second. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Well done. How are you?
We're great, thank you. And you?
Greetings to all of you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Please join the conversation, Elder Zion.
Insecurity in the country.
Yes.
It is delightful to note that yesterday, Nigerian security personnel pursued the bandits that captured some guys in the university, and they were able to rescue 7.
13 altogether.
They rescued. Hello?
We're with you, we're with you.
Okay. From the 6 initially rescued, bringing the total number to 13. We congratulate them. We applaud them. We commend them. I think, you see, you would ask, how are the Nigerian troops prepared for that attack? Do they have the necessary equipment? Were they equipped properly that made them immediately? There were some shootings here and there. They retreated. So why am I saying this? Again, in the same Zamfara, the governor was fuming, annoyed that the federal government is negotiating with the bandits. And he didn't tell the Nigerian public the struggle and the effort he has made as a governor. You see, all these things were suggesting to government, federal government, our president Tinubu, to suspend every other thing at hand and face insecurity. The palliatives that are doing this out here and there, it's not for the people, it's for the elites, it's for the politicians, it's not getting to the people. That money should be retrieved. The 3 billion they're supposed to give again should not be given. It should be deployed to acquiring arms and ammunition and equip our soldiers properly to engage these criminals. Having said that, there was another news yesterday that came that surprised me, and that is that Dangote is now trying to slash the prices of cement from 5,500 to 2,700. It's interesting that the question is, since the raw materials they are using are local products that are made in Nigeria, they don't import it.
Why has it been so expensive all around?
This year, that the price of cement continue to go up. Even when, you can remember, just last week, a journalist conducted a research and told Nigerians that in Benin, Republic of Benin, 1,005. In Ghana, it's 2,000. In Niger, it's 2,000, a little over 2,000. It's because of this research forced them to now crash the price of this. Whereas they have been cheating Nigeria, they have been cheating on the poverty of the people of Nigerians all the years. You see, they have to show patriotism.
All right.
Everything they say, they go to, I say, he have been cheating us. He have been eating us dry. Nigerians should wake up.
All right, tell
Let us be clear.
All right.
I thank you all. I give God the glory. Please regard everybody.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
You
Have
too.
a good day.
Thank you. You know, this thing he said about cement price being slashed from 5,500 to 2,800. I think I read a report yesterday where a body of people are actually calling for the federal government to, you know, there are moves from, the Minister of Works is saying that they're going to be moving from asphalt to concrete roads, which means that there'll be more cement in demand. So they're actually calling on the federal government to make sure that something is done, because if something is not done to mitigate this, that means cement will go from 5,500 to 9,000 naira. Those were the calls that were being made as at then. And they're also making reports that they want more people to go into the business of, you know, cement production and make it mass production so that other people can have access to, you know, supplying Nigerians. Maybe that's where this conversation of being slashed to half the price is coming from. I wouldn't know, but Eldazayo definitely made reference to it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it.
You know, from the moment the Obasanjo administration monopolized the cement industry, it became something that the normal masses, the ordinary masses, could no longer afford. We now have just few players in the industry who decides the price and decides the amount that goes into the market. Now, it is good a call that is being made that more players should be able to. Should not just be left to these few persons who have been given, who had previously been given the license and monopoly. This should also extend to every other person. Just like we are calling for several calls for other persons to engage into the oil industry.
Yes.
It should also be allowed. Other persons who have money in this country should also be allowed, encouraged, even state by state production. If we should be able to have cement factory in all the states, it will no longer be the issue of just Unisem, Bua, and Dangote catering for the needs of 200 million Nigerians and even exporting. These persons are few compared to the amount of persons they are satisfying. So there is no way they are going to meet up the demand. So, you know, when there is monopoly, there is certainly going to be those in control of the price, those in control of the market, and those in control of whatever it is. It will be better if we have more persons, more players in the industry, more industry, cement factories and industries in the country.
All right, that's interesting. Now let's look at this story that says probe reports will expose rot in CBN, says federal government. Now, Cardoso deputy faced screening today. But let's look at that probe now. That is going to expose rot in the CBN. And this CBN governor's issue has still been dragging for too long. How long is that case supposed to stay in court?
Usually the constitution provides that when you are arrested, you must be brought to court within 2 days. A day, 24 hours, and where it is not permissible within that time, at least 48 hours. That is 2 days. Now, the issue of the CBN governor, as we all know, and even not only the CBN governor, the EFCC chairman as well, they have been in this back and forth. You know, today there is another charge, tomorrow there is...
And more people are being incriminated every day and now.
But the thing I have to say is, the institution itself is not sincere. Because if they wanted something out of this and not just make it another political case, like we made the entire Dansuki's case, and today we no longer have it. So it's other than politicizing this, we should look at the root cause of all this. First, that probe is necessary. The Nigerian masses, the media houses need to see the figures, fact and figures of what the CBN have become. Analysts need to dissect what goes in and what comes out. We should have that report. It is our institution. It is not like a company. Even companies, shareholders are allowed access into the running of the company. So we that are shareholders of Nigeria, it is necessary that the CBN is audited, probed, whatever means. There should not be any hiding place for any unscrupulous elements. So it is good that that probe happens, and when it happens, it should be able to open up an integrity access. Persons, let us see persons who man our affairs, how they man it, and how they've been able to take care of things.
That's interesting. But now looking at the fact that the newly nominated man to take up the role of the governor of the CBN, talking about Cardoso now, what are your expectations from him? Do you have any form of optimism that he can turn the tide in the CBN and also set Nigeria back on the right track economically?
No
in terms
doubt,
of our fiscal policy.
No doubt the man has his track records. But if you look at the institution he's coming into, that man will literally do nothing.
You think the institution will overwhelm him?
Exactly. For that man to function effectively, this probe must happen. He needs to start on a clean slate. He does not need to come in and start clearing people's mess. There is a lot of mess that have been made in the CBN. So the man has a very outstanding track record that he needs. If he has a clean CBN, that he no longer bothers on what had happened, all that has happened has been resolved. He is to start on a good slate. He will be able to do magic, but at the moment, without this probe, without accountability on what has happened, without an oversight of what it is, he might not be able to achieve much, even with his pedigree, because that system, the system itself, needs to be looked into.
So what you're technically saying now is that you envisage a scenario whereby the probe stands as a kind of distraction.
Exactly. It is going
his smooth running of the.
What I'm saying is for him to effectively function, the probe must happen. It must happen, so he will be able to see the things he is getting himself into. He will be able to see the places that have issues. The places that every day we keep hearing different stories from CBN. This one will come and tell you this is happening. The other one will come and tell you CBN is doing these financial programs. The next one. Now there is no accountability as to how these things has been done. What has it been achieved? These things need to be in the media. It needs to be clear, and you also need to be clear to the man that is coming in. He needs to see that the system is what it should be. And let us not have too much expectation. Let us know the extent of expectation we are having.
But do you honestly think it's honestly possible not to have high expectations of the CBN governor? The CBN,
if you know, as at the moment, me and you, we do not know what is wrong with the CBN. Because we do not have the reports of what has transpired. But assuming we have the report of what has transpired, look, at a few months ago, the JP Morgan Bank came out and said this was the amount Nigeria has as its reserve with the CBN reserve. Why the CBN is saying it's a different figure? So we are not having a conflicting issues to start with. Now these issues need to be resolved. So this man will not step into a conflict that he does not need to step into.
Muddy water.
Exactly. He needs to start with his own policies. We need to know how much do we have. It's not CBN telling us that we have so and so amount.
So you don't think it's possible he starts with his own policies while the probe and investigations are going on the side?
Now, what can you build your house on 40 foundations?
Absolutely not.
No. So you need to understand where rain starts beating you, so you know where
how to handle it.
Exactly.
All right, let's go to this interesting story that has kept a lot of eyebrows raising and wondering what's going on. They say fire got 3 offices in Supreme Court. PDP demands probe. For PDP to be demanding probe, don't you think they're looking at it like this fire is not just fire? And looking at the track record of things happening in Nigeria, it's always as though when the focus is here, something will happen here. When the focus is there, something will happen there. So what's really going on?
Now, the fire that happened at the Supreme Court is a fire that could have ordinarily happened in any other building in Nigeria.
Yes.
Overstretching it into politics is unnecessary. However, it is necessary, even if it has happened in a private house, that investigation should be carried out. No doubt. Any fire that happens, there must be an investigation. That's how countries operate. Even if it happens in somebody's storehouse, there must be investigation as to the cause of fire. So that you could, if there were maintenance that are not made, you could provide those reports, and maybe every other person will be able to take a clue as to how to tackle their own situation. But bringing it into politics is overstretching the matter. The CBN spokesperson yesterday spoke in details that it did not affect it at all. It only affected one office of
the Supreme Court,
of a justice of the Supreme Court. So it has nothing to do with the entire where the record or anything political is concerned. So it's calling for investigation is good, but not because it affects politics, but because we need to know what actually is the cause of the fire. Is it preventable? Is it that maintenance has not been made? Who should have made those maintenance? Not because there is an election or it has any political undertone, but because we need a safe environment. An environment where persons can be able to stay and be safe, not anything political.
But we do know that if PDP is calling out for an investigation, it simply means that they are believing it to be political.
Considering the fact that there are petitions from the PDP and the Labour Party heading to the
but look at it this way. What could ordinarily happen to the case? Now, parties have not even filed their brief, and if you're looking at the notices of appeal that have been filed at the Supreme Court, notices of appeal are basically, you can still collect the notices of appeal even if it got burnt. Collect it back from the Court of Appeal. The copies are still there. If you are looking for records of appeal, the records are still at the Court of Appeal. You make extra records and get it to the Supreme Court. Parties have not filed their briefs. So whatever that has, there is nothing, if you look at it objectively, there is nothing that you put on the table that you will say, even if the entire Supreme Court burns, the election case will still go on, because you collect the copies from where they are emanated. They are emanated from the Court of Appeal. Collect it from the Court of Appeal, and the case goes on.
Okay, quite a lot has been talked about, and on a final note now, the Nigerian Labour Congress has accused the federal government of delay in terms of their negotiations, and various headlines have it this morning that the NLC are beginning to mobilize their members across the states to embark on an indefinite strike. Do you think an indefinite strike at this point can lead to a lasting solution? And if on your part as a legal practitioner, as a Nigerian, what would be a favorable meeting point between the masses, between the organized labor and the federal government? Now,
as much as the labor have right to protest and call strike, there are things that they should be put into perspective. And what are the demands of the labor? Are they demanding for their staffs or for the well-being of Nigeria? Has it something to do with the hardship being faced? Or is it that their salary should be increased? Is it that the subsidy which we've been told it has been taken off should come back? What is actually their demand? Nigerians need to know their demand, because you do not take Nigerians by surprise every day you call for strike and tell us it is for us. Let us know what your demand, because the demands are becoming too many. If you're sticking with one demand, make one demand. If you are making, today you're calling for subsidy, tomorrow you're calling for increment of salary, the next day you're calling for bringing for interventions, the next day you're calling for palliative. These are unnecessary. Tailor your demands into one, and let us find if there are ways private individuals or even can even amplify these conversations.
So you're saying the NLC, the TUC, they've not been sincere. The
sincerity has been lacking. The sincerity has been lacking because they have been inconsistent with their demands. That demands need to be tailored. It is good that they are making demands. However, that demand need not be bogus. It is becoming very bogus.
All right, a quick one before we go. There's this a caller called yesterday and was saying, how can we be demanding for palliative? It's like asking for a tiny portion of what is supposed to be yours. What do you make of that?
Now, there should never have been palliative in the first place. The amount that was used, I think on this program one certain time I said, the amount that has been used on palliative could have been used in building 2 refineries. All we need to set back what has been lost now is to get our fuel price down. The moment we get our fuel prices down, every other thing will come down. Every increase that has happened in the last 3 to 4 months is because of the increase of petrol price. The moment the petrol price increased, dollar increased, transport fare even from Gwarempa here to Berger increased. Every single thing. Crayfish in the market even increased. Vegetable that has nothing to do with
even Nigerian rice, our own rice, that's supposed to be our rice, is even I think it's just 2,000 or 3,000 difference.
But you would not blame anybody, because the hardship is hitting hard on every single person.
Every single person.
Now, if you cultivate rice, you go to buy fertilizers in the market. The prices of fertilizers has gone up.
You would have to transport it.
You also have to transport it. The prices of transport, those transports, you personally transporting yourself and transporting your goods as well, has also gone up.
Some of these farmers, they pay heavily on unions
you look at what has happened, and you look at how they've been able to, insert those losses they've incurred into the prices. So the major thing to crack this whole thing down is to get our refinery or get us a lower price fuel. Let us have a fuel that we can buy as low as 150 that we've been buying. If you can get us that 150, every other thing will go down.
All right, thank you very much, legal practitioner Barrister Kelechi. I really appreciate your time today on the press.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, viewers, that's where we'll draw the curtains on today's show. We hope to see you again tomorrow. I am Olamide Alhassan.
And I am Francis Adeniyi. Have a nice day.